point here is, what is news? You see, what I want you to think about is not what PR is, what press release is, but what news is. Because if you're trying to talk to the media is interested in news, something that's new, obviously, but they're interested in a story. So stories are what makes news, not just the fact that you exist. And I'll talk about that in a second. But so the question is do you stand out? Are you a purple cow? Now, you don't really see purple cows very often, do you? Right? News is purple cows. So you've got to stand out. You don't see purple cows very often. So try and be a purple cow. Try and be different. Because there's a hell of a lot of companies out there who are all doing relatively similar things. So try and stand out, okay? The point is it's got to be different. Like, a dog bites a man or a woman every day somewhere on the planet. But just biting a dog, unless you're in Korea or South Korea, is very unusual. So stand out. Also, we've got to remember that journalists are interested in making their titles and their own careers successful. So if you appeal to the title and to the journalist, then they're going to be very happy. If you're going to give that title a story which they wouldn't necessarily get, the readers would find fascinating, then fantastic. Now, you might think you're fascinating, but you should read the title that you're trying to get into. Time and time again, I get pictures from PR people saying, you really should cover this incredible new technology for detecting submarines under the polar ice cap. I go, right, well, we don't write about that on TechCrunch. And they go, no, it's a really interesting story. I'm like, we just don't write about that. And that's the point, okay? Read the title you're trying to reach. So just being a startup does not make you news. Just existing, right, does not make you news. In fact, you exist is not news. Just being a startup is not news. Just being a startup doesn't put you onto TechCrunch. So there's a lot of startups out there. The internet is pretty much everywhere now, just about, possibly some parts of Mongolia, and not connected yet. But other than that, there are startups everywhere. So you're now competing with the rest of the planet. So just existing isn't enough. Perhaps if you were existing in 1995 as a startup, you were probably pretty rare and probably only in Silicon Valley. But that's not the case anymore. So goodbye to that. Question is, you want to be relevant. Now, how do you be relevant? You get into the news agenda. Something happens in the news that makes you go, that's the thing that just happened in the news is about us. Bloody hell. That kind of thing. We've got a product which should answer that question right now. Now, this is your moment. This is when you join the news agenda. Right? Now, what the heck is this? Why is Mike putting up a picture of a plane in the river? So remember when the plane, well, it was a few years ago, the plane crash landed in the Hudson River, and it was very lovely, and everyone was saved, and the pilot was a hero, etc., etc. So two things happened that involved technology that day. The first one, that big main picture, was a picture taken by someone on one of the ferries, and it was very early in Twitter's development, probably about 2007 or something like that. Some startup had built a thing called TwitPic, which allowed Twitter to post pictures. Twitter didn't have pictures then. So TwitPic was a startup. Pic allowed people to take pictures and post them directly to Twitter. This person went past on the ferry, took the only photograph of people being rescued on this plane, and that basically made worldwide news. TwitPic then got traction because it was the only company that allowed that photograph to happen right there. So obviously TwitPic, kind of by accident, joined the news agenda. They got into the news because they got into the news agenda. If that hadn't happened, they could quite easily have joined the news agenda by rushing someone there, taking photographs, or, press releasing about the fact that they were the only people that could have actually captured that moment, that kind of thing. So they joined the news agenda. They looked for that moment. And the point is that when you're a startup, you're busy building your product, rattling away, building the stuff, and you don't necessarily keep an eye on what's going on in the media. And actually, there could be fantastic moments in the media, in the technology media, especially in the press, technology press, when you could actually join the news agenda, and that's your moment, okay? And the second one over here was a 3D modeling startup, which could 3D model the plane going up and having the bird strike and going down. So, and they released a video, and that video became a massive YouTube hit because they were the only ones who released it fast enough. So that was interesting. So be relevant. Timing is everything in news. Another thing is this. You're busy rattling away on your startup, trying to create code, but when eventually you got to the amazing point at which you think you're more or less ready, you want to do a press release. Well, really, at that point, you haven't actually done any work with the media yet at all. So you haven't made any conversations, you haven't actually got to know the media at all. So why don't you find out who in the media that you're likely to be able to contact in the future, try and build a relationship. So, because it's about getting to know how the news media works and observing it, and therefore it's much more likely that you're going to end up featuring it in it. So, in other words, what I'm saying, negotiate before you shoot that press release. And when you want to talk about a big release, a big launch, a big announcement, funding, you name it, this is when you go into negotiation mode with the media. You start talking to them saying, look, we're going to do something next week. We've got a big release, or we're launching, or we've got funding, those kinds of things. That's when you start negotiating. Do not go, we've launched. This is why. This is a stressed tech writer. I'm actually writing at the back here, trying to get an article out at the moment. Lots and lots of incoming. Now, in the old days, when you were a reporter sitting at a news desk, All you had was a phone. I know that might be difficult for some of you to realise, but that's all you had. You had a phone and you had contacts, and perhaps you might have a bar to meet people in. But that was it. Now you've got a lot of incoming. All of these things are incoming, and many, many more. I now have multiple messaging apps on my phone, which various contacts of mine message me on. Let's see, Wicker, WeChat, Line, WhatsApp, Telegram. Those are just some of them. That's just not even there or not even on that slide. So any journalist out there has multiple incoming every day. Okay, you've got to think about that. And at the same time, journalists are now multitaskers. Journalists are moving around. They're shooting video. They're filing stories. They're, booking travel, trying to get to places, do things. They all have to do it themselves because the days of rich media companies are pretty much over. Most media companies are struggling. So remember all of that, and then this is what happens.
Hi, Mark, we just launched our startup. Would you like to write about it? Fantastic, it's really good.
Trouble with that is you have to make a decision. You have a few seconds in the email that you've just sent saying, oh, we've just launched. What do I do now? Now, is this bigger than God? What do I do? I've got a few seconds because I'm already working on something. Do I drop everything and now do that? So question is, what do I do next? And you've got a few seconds to convince me in an email to either reply to your email and go, okay, interesting, or drop, or just ignore it and carry on what I'm doing. I have to work out if you're better than what I'm doing now to drop what you're doing, right? So the question is, do you feel lucky? Either you feel lucky, or perhaps you've actually thought about this and started to think that actually it's not such a good idea to just drop something on the media. Because if you just drop it, then they have to make decisions very quickly. So the point is, you increase your chances of featuring in the media if you pre-brief, if you give them a warning, if you give them a heads up. Let's see if Mike's interested. We're doing it next week. What do you think? Very simple. You can do that to journalists. They won't immediately publish what you've sent them. They'll think, okay, let's have a look at it. You've given me a heads up. I'm actually able now to, if you've got an application or something, I can try the application out. I can download it, look at it, etc., etc. So I think you get all of that. So here's a kind of a generally okay way to pitch. So we're launching X. It will compete with Y. This is another thing. It's better. Now, why is it compete with Y? The reason is because it gives the story context. Journalists are very hard pressed to find out, especially in tech, what the heck you actually do. From one minute to the next, they might be covering a consumer company to a SaaS company to a marketplace, you name it. So that a lot of the time they need context on what you're actually doing. Context is fantastic. If you name your competitors, if you say why you're better, we've got some context. We also want to know, especially in technology, startups and venture capital, is if you've raised money, who your investors are. The more prominent investors you have, the more likely it is you're going to feature, because prominent investors make news. If you get Andreessen Horowitz investing in your company, that's more or less a guaranteed story. If you get some angel that nobody's ever heard of investing, unlikely, unless you're an interesting company. We'll see. Depends. It might be a slow news day, and you might be lucky. And also want to know about exclusivity. Obviously, we always want everything to be on TechCrunch. That goes without saying. But we also want to know who else you're giving it to. Please, 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 for the love of God, please don't send 20 megabyte attachments, 300 megabyte videos. We just don't care. If you want to send us something heavyweight like that, send a link to Dropbox or something like that. These are some ideas about how to negotiate. Yes, well, it's exclusive. We're going to give you a few days. We're going to wait for you to post. This story is embargoed, but here's the info. It's coming out on Tuesday morning, 7 a.m. You have until now. Those kinds of things. And when you pitch, put substance in. You don't ask permission. Don't say, can I send you a press release? Heavens above. Right, now I have to reply to you, say yes or no. Like, okay. Like, I don't know, do what you like. But don't ask for permission, right? It's just pointless, boring, wastes time, wastes everybody's time. I now have to open that email, reply, said, I don't know, okay, send me the press release, for heaven's sake. Okay. Just don't ask permission. Just open it up with actual information. Get to the point. Yes, this is an actual pitch. Mike, given your background, I thought you'd be interested in talking to the founder of blah, blah, blah. With an ongoing debate, someone entering a second in a blah, 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 blah. Who has time to read this crap? I don't have time. Do you have time to read this? Get to the point. Because the news media is very, very busy. Right. No. We're going to have a launch party. Great. Invite us. We can come and have drinks. But your launch party is not news. We don't care. The best thing is to make amazing products. Now, if I hear about your product via somebody else, that's cool. Because journalists are weird. Journalists are weird. Don't tell anybody else this. We'll just keep it to ourselves. But journalists are kind of strange. They think that if they find something, that makes them cool. They're kind of odd. Don't ask me why, but that's where it is. So they like to find things. So finding things is more interesting than being told them for journalists. So if somebody comes to them and says, have you heard about this amazing new app, blah, 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 you go, hold on a minute, this is interesting, I'm going to find it. And that's really cool. Journalists love that. Also, you can be a great contact. Send us gossip. Send us gossip about your competitors and how much money they're spending on illegal activities. Fantastic. Send us bad news. Fantastic. Send us lots of interesting stories so that when you become interested in getting into the media yourself, we'll remember you and think, hold on, that person gave us a great story. Right, I'm going to take your phone call, sir. Right, make your own content. Blog, Facebook, Twitter, video, you name it. So make some news, and you know that Apple does this. They just start fights. It's fantastic. We love fights. Always remember, who are you talking to? Are you talking to Mike from TechCrunch and he likes writing about these kinds of things? Or are you talking to somebody else from another title and that's why they're interested in the SATs or something like that? Understand who you're talking to, and then you can get to the point quicker. So target the right title, right reader. Often you end up in national press because they often like to look at blogs like TechCrunch. Now, when you want to pitch, try and be interesting. Pitch in a wooden box. People send me press releases in things, wooden boxes and things like that. I can't remember who that was, but it was an interesting pitch. We like to talk to people in charge. Send us the CEO, send us the founder, not the marketing person. Should you hire a PR? Well, only when you've got lots of money and you have the press hounding you. That's when you need PR people to manage all of that. But basically, PRs are just relationships. Anyway, you could do a lot of that yourselves as founders. And please do not tell us that you're the only company in this space. There is no such thing. You've got to be super unusual, very, very unusual to be that company. You've done all of those things. You don't get any coverage. Never mind. Stuff happens. Steve Jobs just died. The whole press is talking about Steve Jobs for the next month. Bad time to launch a company. Oh well. Another one is pitch like a human. So try not to pitch like this. Hey, you're Mike from TechCrunch. Yeah. I'd really like to pitch you my startup. This is not a good idea. Pitch like a normal human being. Okay? You might see a journalist you need to talk to quickly, but if they're in a compromising position or if they're in a conversation with somebody else, try to be polite. So what's the story? Right. Competition. You're going to kill something. Rumor. You're going to change the world. You're a bit like something else on the next evolution. You have success. We've created 1 billion downloads of this. Failure. We failed. But here's how we failed, and look, it's going to be okay. Celebrity. You got Ashton Kutcher to invest in you. And finally, Istanbul company hacked Facebook. So what should you send the media? Bullet points, very quickly, video embed codes, Crunchbase entry. Everyone should be on Crunchbase, be on AngelList. Hyperlinks to logos. Don't worry, don't send me the damn logo. I won't print it. Save the media time, plain text, quotes, links to other articles, contact details, all the normal stuff. So know who to contact, create relationships before you pitch them, network with people, have a unique story, personalize the pitch, and lay out the benefits for the title's readers. And don't be inciting, don't be annoyed with the journalists. They're very much under pressure. We're not bothered about your whole life story until it turns out that you are actually damn interesting. We might change our minds. Target journalists with tailored information. Don't send the same pitch to everybody. Don't try to PR your company just because you want to be famous. That's pointless. Don't be vague. Say what you want to be covered. Yes, but how do I get on TechCrunch.com? Well, do all the above and, of course, see you in the bar. Okay, thanks very much.